you very much. We have in our life, in family, the desire of changing sometimes the behavior of members of the family. It's not easy. Perhaps between citizens that are mutually strangers, persons that do not know each other, sometimes we need to make agreements. It's not easy. The best way of changing behavior is by talking, but sometimes to talk is not enough. I was rector of the National University, and as authority, I had to change some behavior of the students. We had some difficulties, for example, in following the same rhythm in different faculties. For example, people not obeying to invitations to make next week's exam. And one day, well, generally I had a good relationship with these leaders, but one day they invited me to a place like this, the central auditorium of the university. And there were a lot of noise. I expected that when I took the word, when I began to speak, they will shout. That was my hope. But I began to speak, and shouting continues, even increases. I had promised me to not tolerate that. So I answered in a way that you can see. That was my first political campaign. It was not an intended one, but it was incredible. It was 80% of people wanted to vote for me. So sometimes you have to take some risks. When I was elected mayor, traffic police was very corrupted and very technically bad prepared. So I took the idea of my Cultura Ciudadana team saying, let's mimes control traffic in a small part of Bogota. And that day, a journalist asked me, will the mimes put fines? And I said, no, it's impossible. Laws do not permit that mimes take functions of policemen. But he said, then it will not work, and that was a beautiful challenge. I worked until it worked. Now they are the symbol of Cultura Ciudadana. But we had not only problems of authority with citizens. We had problems of conviviality between citizens, between drivers, for example. So we invented a card, a citizen's card, about this size, and we distributed 350,000 cards. And we asked people to whistle. Well, perhaps I can be accused of using very heterodox ways of. Sorry. Bogota flirtatious is a way of saying that Bogota was ugly, but we all know people that are ugly, but are very empathic, are very, make you happy, make you feel well. So Bogota changed its software before changing its hardware. Now it's also beautiful, but at the beginning it was ugly but flirtatious, flirty. This is perhaps without comments. Well, what is strange is that I refugiate myself, I protected myself by going to make this photo in the door of a church. So I'm deeply Catholic. It may not seem like that, but I am an external ally. At a certain moment, we had big problems with water shortage, And the traditional way of managing it was giving people for some hours water and then stopping. It seemed to me that we should try to save water voluntarily. The first week, the consumption of water became bigger. So I was preparing myself to blame the citizens. My team asked 24 hours to make a research, to search why people were consuming more water. We discovered that even in some of our families of the team, people were saving water in vessels in any case, because normally all the mayors begin saying, save the water, and then as you didn't save, I close for some hours. So it was an exercise of autonomy. It's not as good as Kant, what is illustration, but it gave the flavor of self-regulation. But what I did was showing, sorry with the jet set, but I was trying to make people think about water shortage. At a certain moment, telephone, instead of sounding beep, beep, beep when occupied, telephone was ringing and Shakira's voice was saying, gracias por ahorrar agua. So Shakira made it a lot better than myself. Well, later we had problems with incomes of the city. So we asked people to pay voluntary 10% more real estate tax. We didn't know how much result, but we had no other solution. We were elected promising taxes, and councilmen of the city were saying, you promised more taxes, but we promised not allowing you to raise taxes. And if there is no cooperation, in that case, we do not get taxes approved. So in the formula, there was a line where the wording was, I accept to pay voluntary 10% more taxes. 63,000 families paid. That represents about 300,000 people. And yes, well, taxes are not very popular, but I can try. Y llorar, y llorar, y llorar. You know that song? We could say, pagar, pagar, y pagar. It's a Mexican. Well, we arranged it and we got to the places where people pay taxes and we made them a serenade. In general, we had a lot of media support because we did strange things. Here is Los Héroes. It's the station of the new system of buses in the city, and the 10 first persons who paid 10% more taxes, they had their names put on the window of the station, because the station is very close to a monument called Los Héroes. So we had a link between the past heroes and the new kind of heroes. The other problem was gun. I hate guns. If I can destroy, I destroy them. It's one of the biggest pleasures in my life. But it happened sometimes so publicly that the Army of Colombia claimed that they had the monopoly of destruction of guns. So one of my projects is invite military from many places in the world for making a sort of orgy destroying guns. Imagine a military exerting his right to destroy guns. But we finally had cooperation with the church intermediated, and here you can see a priest. Well, here I am destroying a gun together with the cooperation of military, and also with the cooperation of church. Bible says that in some moment, the metal that has helped to kill can be used for making people food. Now, from one year to another year, we had 500 less homicides. In general, we had two reductions of 30% in the two terms that I was. But at a certain moment, for journalists, this was routine. Well, all things can become part of a custom, and no. So when I felt that, I asked the two priests that worked in my team to invite 500 youngsters, and the youngsters got in the tombs with their shoes, out, and there was the hymn to joy, or the hymn of joy, Beethoven, the same musical piece that is the hymn of Europe, and at a certain sentence, these youngsters seated at the front of their tombs. For me, it was the most close as we, as humans, can get to resurrection. It was not a resurrection, and my explanation was precisely we have to be very harsh against murders because they are not steps back. You can be wounded, you can be kidnapped, you follow to live, and you can re-elaborate what happened to you, and you can finish your life saying something with sense. But if you are killed, you cannot put new chapters. It's cut. So we have no right to stop other people's life. At a certain moment, I was menaced by the FARC. About half of the mayors of Colombia were menaced. I put a bulletproof jacket, but when I put it under my shirts, it was very hot, very uncomfortable, and I felt shame. I was full of shame and irritation. So I said, I will wear this jacket outside. And I opened a hole in the form of earth. And the American ambassador was touching me sometimes to verify that I didn't have a hidden piece of metal. He said, please. Okay. But this was perhaps like the mooning, a double sense. It was, in some sense, a message of love and of confidence. But it was also a sort of despective way of looking. I'm not afraid. I have the force of vulnerability. You have to have good punteria, good. So we are here very close to my general proposition. We are not only regulated by legal sanctions. We are also regulated by feelings like guilt. Guilt is not only Catholic. Dostoevsky can write a lot about guilt. And people even in other cultures have some equivalent of guilt. It's a feeling of insatisfaction about yourself. You feel you did something bad. So at the beginning, I saw only two ways of changing behaviors. Next, I discovered the difference between guilt and shame. I wasn't enthusiastic of shame, but I discovered that sometimes people get very hurted by it. Shame is very cruel. And Gilligan, an American expert, had documented how many people are suffering from being ashamed and killing in the rage that generates the shaming. So each time we shame someone, we have to find him a way back to the relation. If I do this too much, the person can say, will not receive that kind of signal from you. We have also social recognition. We have also moral satisfaction. You have also protection of rights. So you have like a piano. You can play with at least these 6 things. So when there is a public policy that we want to make real, I invite strongly that we look at the 6. We look at the 6 possibilities. There are more. This is a little bit simplified, but it helped us a lot. So if you recognize good behavior as good behavior, if you show that law protects rights, you can displace a little bit the desire to punish. Nietzsche was showing that punishment is many times a need of the aggressor. Sorry. So the main instrument that we used in our actions was the distinction between law, moral, and cultures, and some careful linking of them. In Colombia, if the law forbids to kill, Catholic tradition forbids to kill. Many people, moral, ask people to do not kill. But if one of the 3 systems, like it happens still now, for example, I find my woman with another man. So instead of asking them to let me a place between them, well, I go in the machismo, the machista culture, I go and I kill him until no far years, there was a condition where this kind of murder was acceptable because of the feelings of the man. Okay. My wish, I have the opportunity. Yeah. It's very funny. I can ask something. Perhaps I can express the desire that someday, just with honest talk, we will solve all the problems. And these things like making people feel guilt or making feel shame will be obsolete. We can understand each other without fear or a sort, I don't know, I'm tempted to tell a small story. Okay, I do not, it's transgressing the rules. So with very big pleasure, I desire that we should solve the most problems by talk. It's a talk.